This was not the Ecuador we all expected to see in Chile tonight. In this video, I'll unpack the game a little bit, share general thoughts on what I thought the first half was like, the second half was like, and look at the starting lineup to see how they performed as individuals. The first half clearly started with the way that we all expected Chile to play. A very high pressing team, a very aggressive team, a very attacking team, a team that wasn't going to allow us to build up from the back. And from the very beginning, we struggled. With Beccacece, we've become a team that likes to keep possession, that likes to do short passes, that likes to connect from side to side through the middle, perhaps recycle the ball in the back to then move forward and create different spaces. But I think that there are a lot of reasons on why that didn't work out today. A couple of them are, one, the style that Chile played the first half was very intense and very high pressing, where our center backs or our defenders didn't have time to make good connections with the midfielders. As our midfielders approached, they were given very little space because of the lines that Chile pushed up. And in the first half, you can tell that mentally it was getting to us. We were being very anxious with the ball. We always felt like someone was behind our back, and that caused Ecuador to just feel like they're forced to move the ball quicker and force plays to happen, and that only benefited Chile. But when you have a team like Chile that likes to pressure you in your own half, you have to approach this game with knowing that if you want to move forward, you're going to have to rely more on your wingers and your attackers to use that space that Chile is leaving on their own half because they're pressuring so high. And you have to know that you're going to have to probably do more long passes. And you also have to consider who we had up top, especially on the left, where unfortunately we had the 17-year-old that, to no fault of his own, couldn't help in those moments of transition as maybe he would have wanted to. So we really suffered the first half, from the defensive line, the midfield, to the attackers. It just felt like we were playing Chile's game, and we were lucky to walk away that first half with a 0. Because there were moments where Chile really felt like they can score, and when you have a team like that, you want to just cut that off as soon as possible. Luckily, in the second half, we didn't see a Chile that matched that intensity. It's very hard for a team in general to just go the whole game, or close to the whole game, matching that high press, high intense, attacking type of style that they did. It really requires a high level of endurance and stamina. But I don't know if it was just me, but when we were able to control the ball and seem to be going somewhere, it just felt like our energy wasn't there either. We seemed very tired. We seemed, just kind of just unwilling to gamble it a little bit more and give that extra push to try to get a shot on goal, or to just be more aggressive on the attack. We were very reserved from my perspective when we had moments of dominance in the game. In the second half, we saw Janet come in, and I personally would have liked to see Arroyo come in. I honestly thought that he was going to play. I saw him on the actual roster this time, and maybe if he wouldn't have started, I said, okay, maybe he's going to come in as a sub. But we didn't see that happen. And again, I just think that in those moments of dominance, I don't think that Janet really did much, if anything. And you're going to have those moments in the game. You're going to have moments where one team seems to be controlling the ball, and then the other team, because it's not easy to just maintain possession or maintain dominance the whole 90 minutes. The idea is always, okay, if I'm going to have to give the ball up a little bit, how am I going to be able to keep them away from scoring in those moments? And I think because of our lack of kind of just more of a motivation or more of that push, Chile managed to just ride out that moment of dominance that we had. And I think that was a big chunk of the second half that we actually dominated. And then they started getting it together, and kind of not to the same level as the first half, but not too far out. And again, we just saw waves of attacks, and then you see Beccacece make his second sub, putting Torres in, taking out Estupinian, and bringing Hincapié to the left. And at that moment, we knew that he was just going to go for the tie, and we weren't really to expect much on the attack anymore. And at the end, we ended with what I honestly think was a robbery. When I saw Hincapié make that pass, the first thing I looked at was Ener Valencia onside, and from the very beginning I was like, no, he's good, he's gonna have this breakaway, and I know that he was gonna try to score, and he did. And I honestly don't care what the VAR says. I think that was a horrible angle. That was definitely onside, and we were robbed from that goal. Now looking at the starting 11 that Beccacece put out tonight, he had a line of 3 in the back: Ordóñez, Pacho, and Hincapié. In the midfield, he put Franco, Caicedo, Vite, and Estupinian. And up top, he had Guagua, Valencia, and Plata. It's very tough to say that anybody had a good game tonight. I think that maybe Galindez had the best game. He kept a clean sheet and allowed us to walk away with a point. Looking at the center backs, Hincapié, Pacho, and Ordóñez, I think that Hincapié probably had the best game. He almost set up that goal, and defensively he was pretty solid. In general, our defenders were pretty solid, but I think that where we struggled the most was from Pacho and Ordóñez trying to move forward. There were moments where maybe Ordóñez wasn't as open or didn't give quality balls, but also from Pacho. Man, I gotta say, this was probably the worst game I've seen him in terms of passing. It just didn't seem like any passes were going for him tonight. Not considering the moments when Chile was just constantly pressuring us, I think that Caicedo, he had an okay game. I think the better of the two in the center was Vite. Vite showed his class again with his dribbling skills. I think that he was able to just lose his Chilean defenders very easily and was able to help us maintain possession with his passing. And even though he didn't give a key pass in front of goal, I think that he gave good quality passes. And looking on the left side with Beccacece, even though he found moments to just move down the field and find these crossing opportunities and connect with midfielders to try to maybe create 2v1 opportunities around the Chileans, I would say that combo with Darwin, it just made things worse. It seemed like he wasn't as comfortable as he normally is, and it's no fault of the kid. He shouldn't have been playing, and it just sucks that we had him on the field when we could have had Mercado, when we could have had Arroyo. So I'm not even gonna say much on the kid, because considering he's a 17-year-old, don't get me wrong, I think he did like one good play, and he was up to the task considering his age. But other than that, he honestly shouldn't have been on the field. And then Valencia, I mean, he hustled the way he normally does. Unfortunately, he wasn't given too many opportunities in front of goal. And the one that he did have, he scored, which, again, I think was onside. Plata was very quiet for a big chunk of the game, and I think he maybe did a couple of good runs. And for Franco, I mean, we definitely didn't see the same Franco we saw versus Venezuela. And I guess it had to do a lot with maybe the type of game that Beccacece asked of him today, and the type of game that Chile was posing on Ecuador, because Franco was a lot more defensive today than he was versus Venezuela. Now looking at the two subs that Beccacece brought in, Janet, I think, had a horrible performance. He held on to the ball way too long at times, and even in our own half where he ran that risk of losing it, or I think he did lose it in like a moment or two, and allow Chile to just get on the attack on their own half. And he also missed that golden opportunity where he let his anxiety get the best of him, where he just swung his foot. And with Torres, I can't say much. I mean, Beccacece had made up his mind to just be defensive and just try to tie the game up. So I think he did what he had to do, and he didn't have much playing time, so there wasn't like absolute key moments for him. I'll finish this video off by saying, even though we tied, and historically speaking this is supposed to be a good result for us, it definitely doesn't feel that way. And it doesn't feel that way, one, because we've seen Ecuador play better away. Versus Colombia, they played a fantastic game when we had the 11 on the field. and we didn't see that much during the Chile game. And I mean, there's so many factors to consider, because you also have Ecuador that played on Friday and had that day less of rest, and then the day of travel. And even when they got to the hotel and approached the fans, it seemed like they were tired from the travel. Second, we never took advantage of Chile. We were weak in the attack with crosses. We never managed to get anybody to get ahead on the ball. And that was very disappointing to see, because we're supposed to have very attacking defenders when it comes to crosses. And lastly, it feels like a loss because we really missed out on having a good left winger on the field. Instead of Darwin, we could have played Mercado, we could have played Arroyo, and those are players that play in Europe. Even with Kenny Arroyo that is still trying to establish himself in the club, he is still getting minutes, still playing games, and Mercado plays every weekend in Portugal. But on the bright side, we're still second, and we will be closing off our qualification to next year's World Cup versus Brazil in Quito.